Hi guys, thank you for you guys who are here. We don't need to do big introductions. I think this is something we're going to do once a month, but I'm with Rajiv Khanna. He's the managing partner at immigration.com. So we're just here to chat about the H-1B. The best way to do this session is for you guys to ask as many questions as you have, use this time to the best of your abilities, and we hope to keep it as interactive as possible. I know you said you have some things to share, Rajiv. Do you want to go ahead with that?
Sure. 3 or 4 issues that have come up in the last week or so repeatedly, even though we addressed them or at least touched on them briefly the last time we spoke. One issue was about travel. How is this Omicron ban affecting students coming from India or people who have gone to India and are coming back? And the answer is probably not at all. Unless you have been to South Africa or one of the African countries, I think there's a total of 9, you have nothing to worry about traveling back to the United States. At least that's how it is so far. Somebody asked me, one of the students was, and this was a repeat question actually, one of the students who brought this up was that, what if I go now and all of a sudden the Biden administration changes the rules on us and now we can't come back? And my answer to that was, yes, it can be like that. But the data we are getting from CDC appears to suggest that first, Omicron is not as big a threat as we had feared. We are still in the middle of everything, still the research is coming in. But from what we have seen so far, it does not look like it's a big problem. Second, if there is a ban, it is always a presence ban. So the bans that you have seen are not because you are an Indian citizen or Indian national, it's because of your physical presence in India. So therefore, if you had your visa, you were all set to travel, you could go to a third country for a couple of weeks. And we had actually compiled, we have a client in South Africa who's trying to come. They have a whole bunch of people trying to come from their business. 6 or 7 of them, they are a publicly traded company here in the United States. So the question was, which consulate can we go to get a visa stamping done? The problem is, getting a visa stamping is a totally different issue. Being able to travel is a different issue. So when Indian students who already have visa stamps on their passports ask me, are we going to run into any difficulty? The answer is probably not. And then you have the presence idea, where you can go to one of the countries that are exempt from the ban, the presence ban. Costa Rica was a very popular destination amongst a lot of people. Some people went to Mexico. Some people went to Maldives. What is that island in the Indian Ocean? Island nation. I'm trying to remember. Very pretty. But basically, any place where they don't have travel ban from coming into the United States. A couple of weeks of layover there will take care of the problems. So I'm not that worried about this becoming a major issue so far. If it does, you are right. You need to be careful. You could get stuck in a situation where you don't have too much control. Aina, you have a question?
Yeah, so somebody messaged kind of along the travel route lines that they just unfortunately lost their job and will no longer have an employer going into the new year, and they're on OPT. Will they be allowed to leave the country given that they don't have an employment letter or an employer in the US?
I think it's a very bad idea to travel, because if you are on OPT and you don't have an assurance of continued employment in the United States or continued practical training in the United States, you could have trouble getting back into the United States. So don't leave, stick around here and get yourself a proper position. Remember, the rules for OPT, CPT, and STEM OPT are all different.
Yeah.
Just to keep things interesting for you. So out of all these, the OPT is probably the least cumbersome. So even if you did 20 hours each week and you did unpaid volunteer work, as long as it was, and it is, in your own field, you're fine. You don't have to actually have a quote unquote job. I also will give an example of somebody I know in New York, who, this young lady, when she got out of a graphic design course, she couldn't find a job. So she asked me if she could do her own work. And I said, sure, as long as you can demonstrate that you actually worked no less than 20 hours each week, and it was in your own area. So she did very well. She actually made a lot of money doing portfolio development for various corporations all by herself. And she ended up working a lot more than 20 hours each week. And she actually traveled to India and came back without any issues also. So first year of OPT is actually quite easy to manage.
Okay, wonderful. I think his follow-up question was, and I don't know if you kind of dabble in this section, is how easy would it be to find an employer to put him in the H-1B lottery, given that he will start recruiting for a job now, and the lottery, the H-1B processes should start taking place already or will in the next month or two?
The unfortunate thing is that we are trained to be very precise with language. So when you ask me a question, how difficult, I want to know what the scale is. Because is there a scale by which we measure difficulty? I can't think of one. So like most jobs, including the first job I got in this country, jobs are very often a matter of being in the right place at the right time. I was looking at a pop-up from Washington Post today that said Americans are resigning their jobs at a record number.
Yeah.
So it feels like depredation, but it is also supplying a need. So will you be able to find a job easily? All indicators seem to state so. And also remember OPT, well, for H1 lottery, remember the investment is only $10.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge amount of money that somebody would be hesitant about spending.
Yeah.
If you prove your worth to somebody or potential worth to somebody, they'll be too happy to accommodate you.
The most common question I've been getting is that when you apply for a job, there are these two boxes that said, I will now or in the future require sponsorship, yes or no. People want to know, do you have to click yes if you're on OPT and you don't care to get sponsored by that company?
I think the answer is no. Well, in future, you might need it, right? So what if I don't want to stay in that company? I don't know for sure. So I can't commit one way or the other. The answer would be appropriate answer in my mind, again, going by precision in language, would be no. Do you now need sponsorship? No. Would you in future need sponsorship? I don't know. Would means, do I want to stay here? Maybe I don't like you guys. I want to move along. So the answer is probably no.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. I want to open up the floor to some of the people in this chat. Looks like there's 9 of you right now. If you guys have your questions, please ask them, throw them in here. We are happy to answer them.
And if you are here just to listen, that's fine too. I've got a lot to say. Because I get so many questions. I get anywhere from 20 to 100 questions every day. So yeah. I try to answer as many as I can. Most of them can be answered through canned responses. So.
Hi there. May I ask a question?
Of course you may.
This is more related to traveling on OPT with an expired student visa. I'm aware that there is a category called Automatic Revalidation that allows you to travel to a certain country.
Yes.
Only for 30 days or less, which actually happened to me. And I had a lot of difficulty going back to the US. I had to cross the border by foot. So my question is, if that's a category that exists within the legality of things and allows you to come back, but it's still very hard because of the expired visa but valid work permit, in the case that there's an absolute emergency to travel, what's the best way to deal with the return? When talking to border and customs, usually the main problem is that the airline won't let you into the flight because you don't have a visa that's valid anymore. So what's the best way to go about it? If you have any advice on that. I'm definitely not planning to leave the country, but if there were an emergency, I just want to be as prepared as I can.
Okay. So you have raised maybe 4 or 5 issues and sub-issues without even knowing it. And So we'll see how many we can deal with. First of all, let's understand what AVR is and what AVR is not. Automatic visa revalidation is simply an accommodation made as a matter of comity or friendship towards our neighbors, our land-connected neighbors. Canada, Mexico, Virgin Islands, New Virgin Islands, where you can travel on the strength of an unexpired I-94 and return if you go only for 30 days or less. I think it's less than 30 days. You will not need a visa if you return. Now, a couple of things that can be a problem are, one, if you go to a third country, Mexico, Canada, and you apply for a visa at the consulate there, and they deny the visa, you can no longer use AVR. So one of the preconditions of AVR is you should not have applied for a visa from any of these countries that you visited. Number two, AVR is still admission. What admission means is the government can question you as much as they like. People at the airport are given the latitude and the power to ask you any questions they want. And the most important question is, are you maintaining your status? When you're an OPT, my recommendation is, if you need to travel to a contiguous country, Canada or Mexico, make sure you have evidence that you are maintaining status. What does that mean? A letter from the employer that says you have been employed with them, this is what you are doing. A letter that shows that you are working no less than the required hours and working in your own field. I would get my I-20 endorsed for travel, for international travel from the DSO. I would also carry some pay stubs and, if possible, a W-2 to evidence that I'm actually working. Getting paid is not a requirement of OPT, but it does help. Okay. Another thing that you need to remember is, people have asked me this question because people are creative. So the question is this, I know this would be interesting for you to also listen to. If I go to Canada, from there I take a flight to India, I spend a few days in India, I come back to Canada, can I still use AVR? And the answer is no. That's another requirement of the law, that if you are using AVR, you are only going to the country that you're supposed to go, and you're not traveling from there. It can't become your point of departure to other countries. The last point I want to make is, it is always risky to apply for a student visa. You never know. I remember the case of this young lady who, in the 5th year of her PhD, went to India and they declined to give her a visa to come back. 5th year of PhD. And she had maintained status all the way through. I do not know what derogatory information the consulate had on her. Luckily, it was not a problem for her. We were able to get another solution devised for her. She was able to come back on a non-student visa. That worked out fine, but there is always a risk. Try not to apply for a student visa. Wait till you get your H-1, that's a much more secure visa. So if you have to travel in an emergency, which was your original question, you travel at your own risk, okay?
Thank you very much. Could I ask a follow-up question, or?
Of course.
I don't want to take over.
Time in the world.
No, no, go ahead.
Okay, in a hypothetical case that in the following lottery in the spring, if I were to decide, how much do you recommend to pay the quick processing fee so that
the premium processing? Okay, let's understand something about the H-1B process also. First of all, you're not supposed to pay your employer anything. If your employer asks you to chip in to the cost of the H-1B process in any way, that's a sleazebag move. Don't get involved with that. Okay. Any of our employers, they ever ask us, they know we will absolutely not file the papers if we know any part of the money has come from the employee. So don't give any money to the employer towards the H-1B process. But there is an exception. If premium processing is being requested by the employee, not required by the employer, for the benefit of the employee, it is okay for the employee to pay for that fees.
Okay.
Okay. So you can always offer to pay the fee and say, this is allowed by law. And if you want to double check the law, you can play the recording back to them, say this old dude said so, and their lawyers can double check it. That's just the law. Okay.
And just off of that, can you just talk about premium processing? Is it something you recommend if an employee can afford to pay for it? Yeah.
Yes. Because you can't put a dollar figure on peace of mind.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's so much peace of mind in knowing that your H-1B is approved, pinned, tagged, and ready to go.
And what are the fees associated with the premium processing?
I'm terrible at fees. My team takes care of all that. I think it's close to $2,000, $1,700 some dollars. They keep changing. When we first started, it used to be like 500, but it's now, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple of $1,000s. I don't ask me fees questions. They're on the USCIS website. Go look at the forms that tells you what the fees are. I don't remember form numbers and I don't remember fees. I know the law.
And while an H-1B is being processed, in the hypothetical case that it's accepted, do you advise travel between that time and the time when the H-1B is actually valid?
That's a very good question. And I have a very detailed answer on that. So if you go to our website, immigration.com, and on the very top panel on the website, there's a link to my blog. You go to my blog, you go to a page before the current page. I think it's about the 17th or the 18th entry. Travel while H-1B is pending, while you're on OPT, CPT, or STEM OPT. I have a graphical chart, an infographic that tells you what risks accrue at one point. So sometimes it's okay to travel, sometimes it is not. Read that through. I have never had anybody come back with a follow-up question. Either they haven't found the page or they have completely understood the information. I prefer to believe that they've understood the information. So look at it. And if you still have any questions, come back and ask us again. No problem.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're
So
very
we have
welcome.
some questions in the chat. First one, I just want to clarify something on here. If you're on F1, anyone applying for a job should tick yes. If they mark no, later, won't they be rejected in their screening? So I think that comes back to the...
Okay, so you can tell them that I asked a lawyer, very experienced lawyer, a lawyer with no life. That's all he does, law all day. And he said to me, when a question is asked stupidly, it must be answered as wisely as possible. You can't argue scriptures with a monkey. So if you ask me a monkey question, you get a monkey answer. You ask me, let's parse the question. You ask me, do you now need a sponsorship? No, I'm on OPT. 2, would you need sponsorship in the future? I don't know. Do I like you? Do I want to stay with you? So would I? No, maybe I could, but that's not the answer. That's not a yes or no answer. Give me a yes, no, and maybe, then I would probably take maybe.
Yeah, I think
It's like
that first box that says like, are you legally authorized to work in the US? That's a yes, always. But
yes.
this one, I guess as long as you can justify, feel free to use this recording to justify it.
See, it's in law, we are always cautioned, cross-examination 101, you never ask anybody a compound question. A compound question is, are you good looking and stupid? So what do you want me to answer, yes or no? I am good looking and I'm not stupid. So how do I answer that question, yes or no? You can't. So when you ask a dumb question, you get a dumb answer. Next.
So we have another one. Hello. I'm currently on my 3rd year of STEM OPT. My employer is willing to sponsor me for my H-1B. If I get it, they will also sponsor my green card. However, if I don't get it, I'm not entirely sure what the best path is to stay in the US. I was thinking maybe an E2. What are the most common ways?
An E2 is only possible. What is an E2? E2 is called a treaty investor visa. If you're thinking E3, that's for Australian citizens, equivalent of an H-1B. Very good visa, but only for citizens of Australia. You don't have to be born in Australia. You have to be a citizen of Australia. Going back to E2, E2 only exists as a convenience between countries that have signed with each other a treaty of commerce. We have a treaty with Pakistan. We don't have a treaty with India. People from Pakistan can do E2. People from most European countries can do E2, but you cannot do E2 with people from India. So if you're from India, talk to Mr. Modi, tell him, get on it, please get a treaty signed so we can have E2 visas.
I'm assuming
E2
no
visas are,
with the last name Gonzalez, but
yeah, so he's for Gonzalez, you probably are. If you're from Spain, yes, we have a treaty. I don't know how many of the Latin American countries we have treaties with, but many of them we do. And what you can do is,
EB2
Oscar,
Oops from Colombia.
from Colombia, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think there is a treaty.
He says
Argentina, I know
EB2.
for sure has one. Sorry?
Is EB2 the same?
No, EB2 and E2 are two different things.
Is
If you are thinking EB2, then what you need to do is that Oscar asking me that? No, Daniel.
Daniel.
So Daniel, here's what you do. You go to whatever your search engine is. I want to say Google. That's what I use. I have stock in Google. Yes, actually. Okay. So what you do is you type Rajiv. That's my first name. You will say Rajiv S. Khanna, Khanna, Economic Times. You'll come to my author page in the Economic Times. I've written an article applying for a green card directly from student visa. It tells you everything that you need to know. And if you still have questions, come back and talk to us.
Great. All right, I have one more here.
By the way, I want to finish my plug for E2.
Yeah.
I love E2 visas. They're absolutely fantastic visas, very useful. They are forever. Your spouse gets employment authorization, and the investment amount is not huge, $200,000-$300,000. You can get an E2 visa. I think I mentioned it the last time. I know many people from India are actually getting citizenship of third countries and then getting E2 visas.
I have evaluated that. So can you please have the page link on the H-1B visa, which you mentioned during the session? Okay, I will send that to you, Ravina. All right, do you guys have any more questions? I think this is all the ones I have in the chat. Feel free to drop in any more. Otherwise, Rajiv, you can tell us about anything that students have been asking.
I can cover the green card part. I can cover the green card part and why it doesn't work for Indians.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let me talk about that since Daniel is still here. So the way this works is, when you are on a non-immigrant visa like a student visa, and you indicate to the government, I'm going to become a green card holder, that can create a problem for certain things that you want to do as a student. So let's say your green card is pending right now. And I think it was Jenny whose student visa had expired. So if Jenny starts her green card now, and then she goes to her home country and tries to get a student visa, they will deny it because you have a green card pending. Okay. So therefore, for people who are on student visas, applying for a green card while on student visa poses certain problems. However, if you are born in a country other than country like India, where 1.3 billion souls live, and we are all trying to get to United States, or at least many of us are already here. So there's a lot of competition for a limited resource, a lot of waiting time, 15, 20 years, 10 years. If you are not from India, it's almost certain that within a couple of years, you'll get your green card, 2.5 years, right? So that means within the life of your OPT or STEM OPT extension, you could be done. And by the way, if in the meantime you get H-1B, then the problem is resolved. H-1B is exempt from any problems associated with the green card filing. It's a dual intent visa. It's a visa that allows you to file a green card even though you are here temporarily. Okay, so therefore, for most people who are not born in India, it makes sense to start their green card as early as possible, which is what Daniel was talking about, EB2, Employment-Based Category 2, which is basically applying for a labor certification. What is that process? Basically, we have to establish that we are not able to find people, which is not difficult these days. Most of my clients, especially in technology, in medical field, even in financial field, are having a very difficult time filling positions. So we have to prove through certain methodology that there are not enough US workers available. And that's called the labor certification, also called PERM, Program Electronic Record Management. So the Department of Labor gives us a certification, says, yep, they've advertised, they've tried to find people, they can't find people. Then the case goes to the USCIS, etc. So that's the normal process. It is expensive, and the employer is required to pay for at least the first part of it. Therefore, many employers may be reluctant, but if you have created value for the employer and the employer sees your potential worth, most of them would be willing to go forward. So green cards are a great. You have some other questions, Aina?
Not yet, no. We're good too.
Oh, okay, all right. So I can take my time explaining this. So then what happens is, typically, labor certs take about 8 months to a year. Okay, so you got that. Once that is approved, you file, if you are from a country other than India, chances are you can file I-140 and 485, which is the last application you need to file together. And that application can also get you employment authorization. You, your spouse, your children, everybody can get EAD, employment authorization document. So therefore, for people who are born in countries other than India or backlogged countries, China included, it makes sense to start your green card as early as you can, but don't travel. Sit tight, wait until you reach the last stage of the green card. When the 485 is filed, you also get something called advanced parole, which is a permission to travel. Once you have that, you are free as a bird. You can flit around as much as you like. But before that, probably not such a good idea. Okay, so we have about 3 minutes remaining in this call. Anybody has any questions?
Yeah, this is your best time to ask them. Otherwise, I know dependent EAD at the same time.
It's a mysterious question. I'm not sure I understand that. Can you repeat that question? H1, I-140 and dependents what?
And
EAD.
dependent EAD
yeah.
at the same time. Oh, yep, Nishant, go ahead.
Haji Gupta ji,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes. So the question is, like, if when my company files my green card, so as I receive my approved I-140, and can I get my wife's approved EAD also at the same time, so she can start working as early as possible?
Okay, so that question has two components that need to be parsed. There are two kinds of EADs, right? One, I'm sure you know that already. One EAD comes because your I-140 is approved. Now she can get H4 EAD. Is that the one you are thinking about?
Yeah, on EAD where she can work.
Well, all EADs you can work because EAD is employment authorization, right?
Yeah.
So there is the H4 EAD, and there is an EAD that comes out of the 485, which is the last step of the green card process. But that you are fortunate enough to file only either if you were born in a country other than India or your spouse is born in a country other than India. Do you meet that requirement? Are you or your spouse?
No, we both are Indian.
So that means you're asking about the H4 EAD. So the H4 EAD, as soon as your I-140 is approved, you can immediately file for the H4 EAD. There's no
okay, so it is done after
time.
Okay, so H4 EAD is filed once my I-140 is approved. It cannot be a simultaneously parallel process.
No. To the best of my knowledge, no. I would be absolutely shocked if that were allowed. No, I don't think so.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I think for today we're out of time, but this was great. I'm going to save this recording. We'll have it posted. I think it was Ravina. You wanted that link for me. I'll have it posted in this group. And I'm always here to learn from Rajiv. Thank you very much for your time. Great. Thanks, Priyanka. Thank you, guys. We'll post this wherever we can. And if you have questions, immigration, I think it's help@immigration.com, right?
Good. I know. Well done.
I remember. It's the easiest thing to remember. So just definitely reach out if you can, and we'll be back next month to do one of these again, and that's closer to the filing time. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions.
Yeah, let me see your faces next time when you guys are here. It's so difficult to talk to pictures.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Bye, everyone. Especially,
Guptaji, if I was as good looking as you, I would never get off the camera.
Sure. Next time I'll be on the camera. So.
Bye.